Planet Zoo is over 3 years old. It received over 13 DLCs. That's right, you heard it right. 13, and we've never rated the game. So let's do exactly this. In today's video, I'm going to rate the game in 6 categories. These are Ingenuity, Graphics, Gameplay, Replayability, Content, and Creativity. Each of these segments will be rated 0 to 10, and then we are going to draw a conclusion at the end. I'll say something to each category at the beginning, so without further ado, let's get going. First category is Ingenuity. What do I mean by that? It's pretty simple. What new value does this game bring to the table in comparison to previous zoo games we had? And oh boy, that's a lot. This game went all in, and despite the fact we are still complaining a lot about glitches and stuff like that, this game completely broke with the constraints and limitations that previous zoo games offered. There is no grid, there is no restriction in what you can do with the habitats, and there is basically no restriction in what type of animal you can have, other than some missing, but this goes well into another category. So I'd say with all the stuff, diving, climbing, the way how animals escape by the time, what they do in the zoo, we forgot about many things that they actually do. So I'm gonna rate this a 9.5 out of 10. And we are going to start here with a pretty high rating, but I think it's well deserved. Some things may have not worked out exactly how Frontier would have envisioned that, but I'll rate that for the braveness they had in terms of, well, actually what they brought news to the table. Next up is graphics. Well, graphics is rather hard for me to judge. I like the graphics. I like the graphic style of the Planet games itself. I'm a little bit biased, obviously, because of my love to Planet Coaster as well, but I have to be also honest. The graphics do hold up very well today. They are clean, they are nice, they are very saturated, even though not as saturated as Planet Coaster was, which I think is a good thing, because it does bring a little bit more realism to the table. However, the animals, I was fearing at the beginning of the game's existence that the animals might be a little bit too comic-y because they went exactly with the same art style that Planet Coaster brought to the table. But just as in Planet Coaster, you can reach a crazy level of realism, and people misjudge Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo screenshots for real life. So I gotta say the graphics is really good. However, a little caveat for me is still that, for example, the OG animals, one of the earliest animals in the game, still have a tendency to be a little bit on the comic-y side of things, which is not necessarily graphics, it's more like modeling, but it ties very well into the category of graphics and presentation. So I gotta say, this can't get such a high rating as Ingenuity has, but it's still very solid in terms of graphics. The weather effects look great, the overall look and feel of the game is great, and everything else you have in the game is just looking pretty phenomenal, to be honest. But I'm still giving it a 8 out of 10, because there is obviously some more to have in a game like that, but it still is pretty damn solid. Alright, the next category is a big one. This is gameplay. And oh boy, I had to dig deep for the game, because I'm more of a sandbox player, you know that. But I've played quite a bit of, franchise mode and other things like that. And I gotta say, now as the game is 3 years old and has received countless updates, not only that we have 13 DLCs, we also have over 13 free updates, including the anniversary update, so well over 13, and the game, especially gameplay, has improved. I would even say that the game at this point might even be a little bit too deep in terms of what you can do with the game in relation to the actual effects that all of these things have to the game itself. Now, let me just quickly explain what I do mean by that. Like, we have this really crazy new sociality update. We have crazy animations for animals breaking out and kicking over some bins and trash bins once they go on a riot and stuff like that. We have so many possibilities to create different types of animals by their families and go really deep into breeding programs. But on the other hand side, we still don't have pretty much weather effects going on. It doesn't matter if it's hot or cold for the guest, other than that you have to make sure they're not freezing. But like, you know, there's no real management in terms of thirst or hunger, well, because they're overly thirsty anyways, no matter in which biome you are in. And these things are a little bit too less tackled in comparison to what is tackled way more than enough is with the animals. So I gotta say the gameplay is good, but I might actually need to rank this the lowest of them all, because there are too many flaws in here. And I'm not saying flaws in terms of lack of gameplay elements. I think it's more like the balancing. I want to say there is so much in the game, it could be the absolute mega game. With the conservation credits are amazing, but then again, they don't do enough with them. Once you start to do a breeding farm, this thing, the currency is basically gone. There's also not a second layer factor that requires to have a certain degree before you can get a certain animal. It's just as soon as you have enough money or enough conservation credits, you can basically get all the animals you want. However, the campaign is also pretty decent. You know, I can't rank this too low, but I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. I'm sorry, it's relatively low, but I think it's, with all the balancing, it could really go into the 8s or even above, but the balancing really does lack in certain areas, and this is why I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10, which is still pretty high though, considering how many flaws there have been in the franchise mode at the beginning. And honestly though, with the base game, without any of the updates, I might have ranked this even in the 5s. So this is definitely not the strength of the game, but hear me out, they have improved this dramatically, and with a tiny bit of balancing we might actually see in the future, this can become really decent. Alright, next up is replayability. Now, this is something that doesn't really tie in too much with gameplay. You might think, okay, if the gameplay isn't ranked that high, the replayability might not be ranked that high either. This is different though, because the game offers not only the pure gameplay of franchise or challenge or scenarios, you can also go into the challenge mode with a different difficulty levels, or you can go into the sandbox, and you can also shape the sandbox to your liking. You know, you can even go with a mix of sandbox and challenge if you want. You can say, you know, I just don't care about the money, but give me the challenge of managing my animals, or vice versa. You know, you can say, you know, let me manage the money, but don't care about the you know, welfare and stuff of my animals. Whatever you do, you can shape this game to your liking, and I think the game has a insanely high replayability. I remember comments when Planet Zoo was announced and I was still playing a lot more Planet Coaster, that many people were moaning about the fact, hey, you know what, this is just like a zoo game. You build a habitat once and then you're done and you will never come back, but hey, you can build a wooden roller coaster 20 times in 20 different themings and you can still replay it. I think this fear or this assumption has aged pretty badly, because it's exactly the opposite. You can go back into the game and do whatever you want. You can build like a city zoo. You can build a zoo on a very low budget. You can build a zoo with high restraints. You can go, there are so many things in this. You can go different biomes. You can do whatever you want, and you have different challenges. You know, build a house, build a open oasis, build whatever you need. But the game has a huge amount of replayability, and I'm even giving this one a 9 out of 10 because it is really absolutely really great. I think replayability is one of the biggest things in this game, which always makes me come back to the game as well. So yeah, that's that. Next up, we have got the content, and that is a hard one. This is a really hard one. I have to split this category in order to make sure that we have a fair judgment here. I will say though, I'm just gonna go with the second rating for them all, because that's what I've played the most. But I will say as a disclaimer, we have to judge it with the base game or with a certain amount of DLCs versus all of the DLCs. I have to take a little bit longer in this category. Hear me out, it's important. So first of all, with all the DLCs together, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Just gonna give you the rating straight out of there. Because the reason why is pretty simple. There is so much in the game at this point. We've got so many different animals. We've got so many things in the game that are really great to have. However, there is still a lack of birds. There's still the lack of deep diving animals, which is hard to rate because we do have certain things with exhibit animals now, and we have diving as well. You can do certain things, but it's not exactly there. So I can't give it a higher rating than 8 out of 10. Going back to the base game, I have to judge it, well, 7 out of 10. The reason why there is 1 point difference here, which is actually 10% in that type of rating, is mainly because you're lacking specifically two maybe very important things. So first of all, if you go with the base game or you don't have this, the dedicated DLCs, you will not have a penguin in the game at all, or you will not have a walkthrough exhibit with butterflies, bats, or anything close to flying objects, okay? So that said, it is definitely a different experience, even though you do have everything else at hand, which I want to rate as a big strength of Planet Zoo. The same strategy they had with Planet Coaster, always making sure that you can play exactly the same in the base game as with all of the DLC. So the DLC basically only adds cosmetic content in a way, versus gameplay value content, so to say. I really think this is a great achievement of Frontier, that they never go and basically clip out the people who don't buy the DLCs. You can do, you don't have to, but that's definitely something positive. But I can't rate it as high because you're lacking a lot of animals if you don't have the DLCs. That said, the base game already has quite a significant amount of animals, and you can do quite a lot with them, and they have upgraded a lot of the animals, for example with the deep dive mechanism and so on and so forth. Let's go into the last category, which is creativity. And let's keep that short, 10 out of 10. I would even give it an 11 out of 10, but that's not possible in my rating system. So here you go, 10 out of 10. I mean, what shall I say? We can build habitats on the moon, we can build dioramas, and make Frontier create our own game mode for that, which I, by the way, forgot in the replayability system category. We can do whatever we want. We can make habitats from movies, we can make Planet of the Apes, we can build whatever we want, we can have Josh from Let's Game It Out and create the most disastrous zoo in the world and have millions of people watch it. What else can you demand from a creative game? I think in the category of creative games, there is barely any game out there that is that creative. It is Minecraft level of creativity. What can I say? I would need to rank this category twice to rate it higher. I can't, but this is straight 10 out of 10. I think there's barely anything else I can say. So, yeah, let's go into the conclusion. Alright, so that brings us to an overall rating of 8.5 out of 10. I actually hit my microphone because I'm so stoked by this rating. I'm actually really positively surprised by the rating. I thought it might have been a little bit lower because of, the graphics, gameplay and so on not holding up with what I wanted to go for. But honestly, if I would have, from a gut feeling, needed to give the game a rating, would have been actually 8 to 9 out of 10. And so we're exactly in the middle. I love it. And I want to, just say a few words about this game in particular. For you, maybe as a help, as a guideline, if you haven't bought the game yet, or if you want to buy it in the future and you don't know which DLC you get or whatever, or if you think the game is the right thing for you. I think Planet Zoo has changed the way how a zoo game has to function nowadays. They brought up, the competition, for example, of Prehistoric Kingdom, who are following their steps pretty closely. I think it's no denial, and it's the highest form of praise, actually. And other games also go into that route. They have brought something in with the Planet games, a level of freedom and creativity and building that is, unparalleled. There's no one else on the market doing it that crazily detailed, and you will have a hard time finding another game that offers you that much creativity. So if you're in any way related to a creative building or kind of creative puzzling game, this is for you. If you are, though, a very hardcore type of management player, Factorio is your thing, or maybe the old kind of Settlers game, or some really intricate micromanagement, this game will maybe not fulfill your highest demands. It's still a kind of good casual experience for you, but it will definitely not, make you lean forward, to speak in the gamer language, okay? It's definitely not gonna make you lean forward. So in that kind of sense, if you want to have like a casual zoo game in which you can manage your zoo and so on and so forth, it's still good, but you will have to have at least a tiny bit of patience to grab some blueprints, build the habitats, make sure that everything works, because this game will ask you to make exactly that, to actually have a certain level of fun. There is no real fun in just drop and drag things in, or drag and drop things in and just, enjoy. We have to be that honest. So from a standpoint of a creative builder, this is the rating I give the game. I still think, above everything else that maybe other people say, I still believe the game itself is way better than its current rating sits at because of all the improvements they've done over the years. So I do agree that at the beginning the game may have lacked a little bit too much in the gameplay segment. I think Frontier have fixed a lot of these things, so it's definitely a better choice at this point as a zoo management game. But just as I said, the game, and this is the two layers you have to judge. If you judge it as a pure sandbox player game, it's way above 9 out of 10, but we can't do that because obviously it's not the only audience you have, and so we have to rate it a bit more on the balance fact. And you can see the success of the game, the sales and so on, you know, prove that this game has a very, very good rating. So I think it's fair to say 8 out of 10 is a very solid rating. And also, we also have to speak very briefly about price tag, because we haven't tackled that in the game. I intentionally didn't do that because it's a little bit hard. The base game nowadays is relatively cheap. You can get it in sales and stuff like that. But if you consider the game's basic price with all the DLCs when they came out, it's quite a chunk. You know, you would have to spend $40 a year, so that's 120 over these 3 years, plus the base game, which I believe was 60 in a way. So that's 180 euros over the course of 3.5 years. That's quite a significant amount of money. It's not quite EA level of money, but it's definitely a huge amount of money. So I can definitely understand if people don't want to afford all of these DLCs, and I can definitely understand if not everyone can, so you have to judge which DLC you give. And this is why I will also do a video helping which may be the most important DLCs to have. But on the other hand, for $40 each year, you get 26 new animals and at least 2 insanely detailed packs for pieces with over 500 pieces in them. So again, compare that to what you get, including the free updates, is a very fair price tag. I want to emphasize on, in comparison to the EA level of games, you get a lot more than in the EA packs to a better price point. But it's not cheap, okay? Don't get me wrong, it's not super cheap. It's not like easy peasy. You have to get that money on the table to get them. But if you buy them as bundles later on, it's way more affordable, and then it becomes cheap at the end of the day. So if you have the chance to go into some Easter sales, summer sales, whatnot, grab what you can get. It's always good to have it, and then you'll be happy at the end of the day. So that's that. I hope you guys liked this video. Try to get my best in here, make it very understandable, and rated that in the categories. Thank you so much, and please let me know in a comment down below what would be your rating. You can, you know, use the same categories if you wish, or if you just want to give your rating, just do that. But other than that, have a good time. Thank you so much, and yeah, see you in the next one. Goodbye.